Austria is probably the most undemocratic country in the entire European Union because the country of Austria does not allow me to obtain dual citizenship. I'm currently undergoing a bit of a battle with a consulate because I am trying to contest this, and it's been a real challenge. In this video, I'm going to tell you about the pros of Austrian citizenship, the cons of Austrian citizenship, and what alternatives I have. And maybe this also applies to more people watching this video because Austria is not the only country that has this weird rule that actually does not belong in the 21st century. There are many countries like Singapore, China. These countries do not allow dual citizenship, and there are plenty more countries. But for a Western country in the 21st century to not allow dual citizenship is a bit of a strange move because the country should have adjusted its policies, its laws by now, considering how many people are migrating to European Union countries and how many people could greatly benefit from dual citizenship. Austria does not care about it yet. Make sure you watch this video until the end because I'm going to tell you about the most viable options that I have, that citizens of Austria have, and that citizens of other countries have who may want to get another passport and do it in the shortest time possible and obtain the best possible passports for the least amount of money. What are some of the pros of Austrian citizenship? First of all, Austria is a European Union country. With an Austrian passport, I can go live anywhere I want in the European Union, which is a great benefit. It is a privilege that I have inherited from my ancestors, and I'm not proud of it, but I'm grateful for this special privilege because I know citizens of other countries, specifically Eastern countries, they have a much harder time going anywhere without a visa. I don't have to apply for a visa to most countries. Of course, there are exceptions. Let's say I want to go to Bali, Indonesia. I now have to apply for a visa because Bali, Indonesia changed its visa policy and they only allow citizens of Asian countries to visit visa-free in 2024. Obviously, this was different before, and there are many more countries that I cannot visit without a visa. An Austrian passport really comes with a ton of privileges. The freedom of movement throughout the European Union is one of its strongest assets. I can go live in Spain. I can purchase real estate in Bulgaria because I am an EU citizen, and anyone coming into Bulgaria that's outside the EU or the special economic zone, the special European economic zone, anyone who comes, say, from North America, from Latin America, from Africa or Asia, they cannot purchase land in Bulgaria as easily as I can because they are not EU citizens. I am an EU citizen, so I can go into certain countries in Eastern Europe and purchase land where someone from outside, where they are not part of the European Union, cannot do it. So this is one privilege. And of course, as we've pointed out, I can go live in any of the EU member states. Obviously, you have to get a residence permit. You have to register yourself. That is very important. So you can't just go live there and remain unregistered because that is technically illegal. It goes against the law. You shouldn't do that, but you have freedom of movement with an EU passport. You can go live anywhere you want. What an amazing privilege. The European Union came with a lot of disadvantages, a lot of caveats, and now we're also seeing with a ton of other issues, but as a rule of thumb, I think the European Union is a great concept. It's a very strong passport. Let's say I want to go travel to Southeast Asia, I don't need a visa. Let's say I want to go to Las Vegas to play poker, I don't need a visa. Obviously, I am a resident of the United States, and so that also affects a lot of other things, but to go to most countries, I don't need a visa. I can either go there visa-free or receive a visa upon arrival. America, and I'm now debating whether I should obtain a US passport and trade it in for my Austrian passport because I'm having this battle with the government of Austria where I'm pursuing dual citizenship, but they don't want to make an exception in my case. And we're not there yet, but maybe at some point they could make an exception, but I'm really fighting this hard because I do make my points for a number of reasons and there has to be a way. And if there is no way, maybe you have to build one. But anyway, I'm now debating, should I trade in my Austrian passport for an American passport? The problem with an American passport is that you're really captured. The US government captures you in a lot of ways. You are subject to citizenship-based taxation, meaning even if I haven't spent a single day a year in the United States, let's say I go live in Paraguay full-time, let's say I go live in Argentina full-time, let's say I go live in the Republic of Congo full-time, I have to file my tax return every single year, and I also have to pay my taxes. Of course, I can benefit from the foreign earned income exclusion, which gives me a tax-free allowance abroad, but it is capped. It is not unlimited, and right now, as of June 2024, the foreign earned income exclusion is $253,000 if you are married to an American citizen and both have an equal amount of money, or they have more than what the maximum allowance is, right? I mean, you don't have to pay taxes on $126,500 if you're single, and if you're married, you're looking at $253,000, which is pretty decent abroad. And there's certain structures that you can implement to reduce your tax burden even more. But it's going to require planning. It's going to require certain offshore structures that you can implement, and many of them are perfectly legal, but you still have to observe the legal code and consult with a tax attorney, depending on where you want to set up your companies. And also in America, you have to get professional advice from a licensed legal tax attorney. That's what I do. And that's what I recommend you to do as well. But you see, this is kind of difficult to decide because an Austrian passport is actually really good. I can go live in so many places visa-free, and I can go travel in so many places, where with an American passport, I also have kind of freedom of movement if I want to get one. I can go live in Puerto Rico, I can go live in Guam, I can go live in the US Virgin Islands, I can go live in American Samoa. There are some really cool and epic places where I can live with an American passport as an American citizen, where I could not live as an Austrian citizen. However, there are some caveats, right? Each country has its pros, its cons. Austria does not apply citizenship-based taxation. America does. And I think at some point in the future, if the US loses more strength, and especially if Americans, which I hope it's not going to happen, because America is, in my humble opinion, the strongest country in terms of the economy. It still is. And it will stay the strongest for many more decades to come. I don't see any change there either. And if you take a look at the intervals, the cycles, I mean, America has been in a prolonged success cycle, upward trend, and there are dips, there are spikes. They happen all the time. But a lot of the empires, the big empires, they tend to last for much longer than the US empire lasts. Another interesting fact about Austrian citizenship is that if I were to surrender it, I can possibly regain it. Let's say I renounce Austrian citizenship. I can possibly regain it. I can reapply. And if you do that in America, once you renounce, that's it, you're done. You renounced, you're gone. You may be able to immigrate to America, and you may be able to repeat this cycle of immigration, immigrating to America, spending 183 days per year in the country for X number of years, depending on how you got in, so that you can qualify for citizenship again. There's this option in place. Maybe there's this option in place, depends on many factors. In Austria, if you leave in, let's say, within 9 months, you're like, oh, holy cow, I made a mistake. I want to correct this mistake. They will let you do it. And that's great. If it's been more than a year, I am not sure. It's probably going to get hard, It's not going to be easy at all. There have been exceptions like Arnold Schwarzenegger. He was born in Austria, he was born on the land, and he immigrated to America, and he was able to keep his Austrian citizenship while gaining American citizenship. Why? Because he was in politics. He was a politician. He was a public figure. He's still a public figure. During the peak of his acting career, he was the best paid actor ever, okay? So he has earned his title, and he put in a lot of sweat equity. So if he doesn't deserve it, then who will? However, there is a double standard that I don't like. People of a certain social status can get dual citizenship, while people of a lesser social status, like me, cannot get it. And that is unfair, it is unreasonable, yet they're doing it. I think more pressure must be applied by the citizens of Austria abroad for them to create noise and make the government think, Well, hold on. There are more people now who want to obtain another passport because they have legitimate reasons. They live in another country, and if they were to spend more time outside that country, they would lose residency in that country. A very popular example is, for instance, in America, Austrian citizens cannot gain American citizenship unless they surrender Austrian citizenship. So what a lot of people would do is they would spend 6 or 7 months per year in the United States and the rest in Austria. There are a lot of Austrians doing that. But if they were to leave the United States for a year and then get back to the United States a year later, their green card may be revoked. Even though I have heard stories where that was not the case, where people were outside for years and they were still able to keep their green card. I'm not sure, I have not verified any of this, I'm not making any claims here, but I've heard that. And obviously America is very strict about the residency requirements, but I've heard this. So, but anyway, if you're there, and this also applies to other EU nationals that cannot get another passport, where their countries don't allow dual citizenship. You guys have to really consider this carefully. And obviously, if you have lived in America on permanent residency for enough years, and you have increased your net worth to a certain level, either that or you have lived for long enough, you may actually have to pay an exit tax. And that's going to be the same as an American renouncing US citizenship. They also have to pay an exit tax, assuming that they have a certain net worth. It's $2 million right now. It's very possible and likely, actually likely, that in 5 or 10 years, this number will be greater. Why? Inflation, right? So it could be that in 5 years, it's going to be $3 million. If you are worth $3 million or more, the exit tax kicks in. If you're worth less than $3 million, you won't have to pay an exit tax. So again, this is open and we don't know what the numbers will be in a couple of years' time, but just be aware of these things. And this is a big decision, you know, do you want to trade in an Austrian passport for an American passport? That doesn't sound right. There's something off there, because these passports are pretty much of equal strength. And if you give up the Austrian passport, you gain the American passport, you're going to lose freedom of movement in the European Union, which is not what you want, because at some point in time, you want to go back to Europe and maybe retire there. And then what do you have to do? Well, you can only do that if you qualify for a certain program. Let's say that is residency by investment, and there are plenty of options available, but still it's not ideal. You want to keep the two passports. You know, you want to keep your original passport for sure, if it's a strong one. Now, if you're a citizen of, I don't know, maybe like Djibouti or some weird country, then maybe you don't want to keep it. You know, if you know, hey, I'm never going to go back there because of certain things that happened there, and it would actually be dangerous for you to go back, then you're like, yeah, I can leave that passport aside. I can put it aside. I don't need it anymore. But if you have a strong passport from a legacy country, you probably don't want to surrender it. If you are a citizen of Singapore and you can get dual citizenship, you also have to make a call. I mean, Singapore is beautiful. It's one of the greatest jurisdictions ever, but would I trade an Austrian passport for a Singaporean passport? Hell no. Would I keep a Singaporean passport if I'm an international person and I want to have more rights in other countries? You know, I want to have access to more. You have to make a decision. But I don't think a lot of Singaporeans renounce Singapore citizenship, because it is one of the best passports and sometimes even the best. But how good is it really if you can't move freely with a Singapore passport? You can't live in the European Union unless you qualify for one of the available programs, and they're changing all the time. You can't live in America unless you manage to get permanent residency through one of the available options. I don't think a Singapore passport is better than an EU passport, even though it ranks higher. It really only ranks higher in terms of visa-free access where you can go. But that's not the only metrics to be looking at. What's even more important is freedom of movement, you know, and I can go to Bulgaria and purchase land, not being a citizen of Bulgaria. However, a citizen of Singapore cannot do that unless they immigrate to Bulgaria and they follow all this process. Now, I have an edge over a Singaporean, big time. And so this is something where you have to really look, you know, at the whole picture and think for the long term. And I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm still fighting this battle, and we'll see how it ends. Since you have stayed until the end of the video, I'm going to fill you in on the options that are available to me. Even though I have already explained some of the options, there are some more options that are quite interesting. One of the options is to get an Argentine passport. And I know this sounds weird. Who the hell trades an Austrian passport, an EU passport, for a South American passport? That sounds odd. And it is odd, because in South America, there's this concept called Mercosur, and technically you can visit many South American countries with just your national identification card. Let's say that's in Argentina. You can go to Brazil, you can go to Chile, you can go to Paraguay, you can go to a lot of countries with just your national ID. However, this in and of itself does not guarantee freedom of movement. As we see from clients who we work with in the region who apply for Paraguayan residency, they have to pretty much complete the same process to get into Paraguay. Yes, they can visit on a national identification card, but for them to get residency, they still have to provide the same documents that a person from outside Mercosur has to provide. There are not that many advantages. However, an Argentine passport is pretty good because you can get into certain countries that you cannot get with many EU passports. Obviously, that's not a ton of countries, but a few more where you can have visa-free access. Now, that's not important to me. I don't want to go to Russia. I don't want to go, I think Argentinians need a visa to go to China. I don't want to go to China, no interest. There are certain countries, maybe at some point I want to visit, but you can always apply for a visa. But anyway, with an Argentine passport, it's probably one of the strongest passports in terms of free travel access, in terms of free visa access. But in terms of freedom of movement, it does not compare to the EU because it's just not as good. You need a visa to go to Canada, to the US, to Saudi Arabia, to China and Australia. But with an Argentine passport, you can go to New Zealand visa-free. You can go to the European Union. In fact, anywhere in Europe, you can visit visa-free on an Argentine passport. You can get into all of these countries. Not having to apply for a visa is definitely a great benefit. Something worth considering is that if you go to Argentina, let's say I go into Argentina, after 2 years of residency, I can apply for citizenship. That's if I immigrate and follow the regular process. That's like 2 years. And of course, I have to spend most of the time in Argentina and I have to apply for citizenship in the country. But there are plenty of visa options available. The Rentista visa, that's a great option. Residency by investment, there's an option available. Residency by education, that's another option. Residency and actually citizenship by marriage, which is one of the most interesting options because you can bypass the lengthy waiting time by marrying an Argentine. Isn't that cool? Let's say Gerald flies down to Argentina, meets a beautiful Argentine girl, falls in love and has a baby and gets married to an Argentinian. Great. I would love to marry an Argentine girl for a number of reasons. My ancestry is kind of similar to theirs, and so because of that, there are certain similarities there. But what's really interesting is that you can do it in less than 2 years if you marry an Argentine citizen. You can do it right after marriage. It's pretty cool. If you marry in Argentina, you get it done there, you're good to go. Then another option would be birthright citizenship for your children. Let's say you are together with a girl. It doesn't matter who it is. It could be someone from Europe. It could be an American, it could be a Central American woman, it could be an Asian woman, it could be an African woman, anyone. And you get into Argentina and you have the baby in Argentina. Now if that happens, your baby is granted citizenship right on the spot. It's birthright citizenship, the baby is born on the soil, the baby is born on the land, and the baby automatically becomes an Argentine citizen. It's the same in Mexico, and we're going to get to this in a moment, the same in the USA, and in Argentina as well. And then you as a parent, non-Argentine parent, you may also qualify for citizenship shortly after. So this is great. You can kill multiple birds with one stone, and especially if you're together with a girl, she has a very bad non-lucrative passport, then what you want to do is get rid of that non-lucrative passport. You can do it, and you can do it by going to Argentina, having a baby, obtaining citizenship for everyone, yourself, your spouse, your child. You're good to go. I actually just met with someone from Africa who did exactly that. They flew down to Argentina and did exactly that. So this option exists. Like I said, the same also applies for Mexico. If you fly into Mexico, you have the baby in Mexico and you become a resident of Mexico. You can also get citizenship much faster than someone who undergoes the lengthy process and potentially has to be there for like a couple of years, maybe even 5 to 6 years to get citizenship. Likewise, if you marry a Mexican citizen, you may qualify for Mexican citizenship much quicker. Another option that I have, and many of you have the same option too, you just have to do your homework. You have to put in the work. And what I am talking about here is citizenship by Ancestry. And Ancestry, you can go to Ancestry.com, buy the kit, get it shipped to your home address, do the DNA test, send it back, wait. see what happens. Good things have happened because of Ancestry, and you can really obtain another passport. You can claim a lost heritage of yours, a lost ancestry. You're gonna find so much cool information, and this is great because you learn so much about yourself, your history, your family. I mean, this is great. If you're interested in your history and just knowing like who you are connected to, and like this can open up so many new doors, and you may be able to obtain another passport you didn't know about. And so I'm not doing this for another country in Europe where I'm trying to get citizenship by Ancestry, so we'll see how it works. And obviously I'm going to keep you posted, and I'm going to share everything with you on this channel like I've been doing in the past. But this is something that I highly recommend. It's worth spending the money, especially if you have European ancestors or ancestors from South America where this can be passed on rather easily. Do it. Is the Austrian passport really the most undemocratic EU passport ever? What are your thoughts? What would you do if you were in my situation? What would you do? Share your thoughts in the comments below. As always, I appreciate you. If you're interested in obtaining a residence permit in either Argentina, in Paraguay, in Panama, in any of the countries that we back, including Spain, Italy, and Switzerland, contact us. Email us. We would love to work with you. And as always, we really appreciate you. Thank you so much for watching Nomad Elite, and we see you on the next video.